Hi everyone, it's Ali back again. Sorry I've had a bit of a break, but life got a little busy there for a while, and we also lost our internet connection at home for about a week, so that was a little bit of a disaster. So I'm back again. Today I'm going to show you how I made this really bright colourful card. I've got a piece of watercolour paper and I've got Picked Raspberry, Salty Ocean and Fossilized Amber Distress Oxide inks, and I'm going to spray my acetate just with plain water, and then I'm going to flick that piece over on top of my watercolour card, smoosh it around, push that colour around a little bit with my finger and then lift it off. I just moved a bit of the excess colour around, but it went quite a muddy colour, so I just grabbed a baby wipe just to clean up that pool of colour a little bit, and then just hit it with my heat gun to dry it off. Then clean off my acetate with that baby wipe and go in again with some colour, some more colour. So I just keep building up the colour as I go. That's more of the Picked Raspberry, and I'm going to use a combination of oxides and also distress inks today, which they go really well together. It just gives you a really interesting effect. So I'm going to use some mustard seed, that's the distress ink, and I find that the mustard seed is great. It's really bright, and when you put it on top of the Picked Raspberry and the other colours, it leaves these really vibrant yellow splotches. It doesn't blend with the other colour and it looks really terrific. A little bit more Salty Ocean again, just in the distress ink. Spray it with water and flip it over. And I'm just overlapping my colours as well and bringing them across onto the other colours there with the dots. I really like those speckledy dots that come up from using this acetate technique. And just hit it with my heat tool again, drying it off in between, and a little bit more of the blue there, just on top, and again in the oxide ink. So I'm going back and forth between the oxides and the distress inks as well, so it gives a nice little different look. A little bit more of the mustard seed, dabbing that on top, getting some more of those yellow splotches on top of the other colour. And I just had a little bit left on the acetate, so I'm just pressing that down to get rid of that. And there was a few little white spots left on my card, so I'm just doing the pad to paper direct and then spraying it with water and then moving around with my finger a little bit, just because it was small gaps. I just wanted to fill it with colour. Then hit it with my heat tool. Now I've got my shimmer spritz, and I'm going to use the tube just to flick across the whole piece, and it just gave it a nice little shimmer, some spots of shimmer on there, which I really like. I use that a lot, the shimmer spritz, and it doesn't show up, that well in the photos, but it is a really lovely effect in real life. Now I've got my All Smile set from My Favourite Things, which I've recently purchased, and I really, really like this set. Love the sentiments, the dies, the scripts are gorgeous, and I'm just in love with it, so I'm using it heaps at the moment. And I'm going to cut out my Smile sentiments from black card, and actually cut both sentiments out because I wasn't really sure which one I was going to use in the end. And just seeing how that looks on top of my card. And then I've got the You Make My Whole Face sentiment there, and a piece of black cardstock in my Misty, going over it with my powder tool so that the embossing powder doesn't stick other than on the sentiment. And then using my Versamark ink pad to ink it up, stamp it down, and then just going to grab my white superfine embossing powder, pop that on. Sometimes if I have extra little bits of embossing powder, I get those off with a paintbrush, like a dry, really fine paintbrush, but it wasn't too much on this one, and so I just heat set it. And if I do have any little white speckles, I just go in with my scalpel afterwards and scratch them off really lightly, and I find that's really effective and gets rid of any little floating pieces that you don't want. Now I'm going to cut my sentiment out lightly at first and then heavily on the second run. I use my scalpel and metal ruler for pretty much all of my sentiments. I just can't get them straight on my cutter, so do it by hand and eye. And then I'm going to give it a little pointy end and see how it looks on the front of my card. I thought that it needed a little bit of balance on the left-hand side of the card, so I grabbed my Favourite Things. Oh, I've just got a card base there, but I just wanted to balance the card out a little bit, and I had a gap that I could add a little bit of extra paper, so I grabbed My Favourite Things black and white paper pad and some stripy paper, and just cut a little slip of that just to stick down the side of that background piece and give it a bit of contrast. And trim off the end. And then I'm just sizing that up. I trim down my card base a little, and then I'm going to stick that on with my Kokuyo tape runner. I really like this tape runner. I can actually get it at a local store, Spotlight, sorry, not Spotlight, Officeworks here in Australia, and it's just easy because I can go and get my supplies, and if I run out, it's not a big deal to get some more, and just securing that on, pushing that piece onto my card base. And now I'm going to attach my sentiment down the bottom, and I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to pop it up with 3D foam, but in the end I think I'll just keep it flat. Quite liked the look of it flat on the card. So again, just using my tape runner, pressing that down, and that's my T-ruler, which I use quite a bit to make sure I get my sentiment straight. So that's quite a good thing to have. Now I'm going to glue on my smile. And what I did was I tried out the other die cut first, and I just decided it was too heavy for the card. It didn't have a good balance. The sentiment was just too big and too heavy, so I preferred the other sentiment there. And I often do that with my cards. If I don't know, I just put things on and look at them and see if they look good. I don't have it all planned out before I start. I usually just plan as I go. I cut that out 3 times out of black cardstock and then stuck all of the pieces together just to give it a little bit of dimension and thickness there to that sentiment, that die cut sentiment, and then use my Multimedium matte glue to stick all of the layers together. So I was quite happy with that. So again, I use my Multimedium matte glue just to stick all of the die cut down. It's really good for fine letters. It's pretty much the only thing I use on my fine letters and die cuts, that Multimedium matte glue. Love it. And that is the card. So I hope you enjoyed it. And you know I love my smooshing, so you see lots of that, lots of me doing that on videos. But thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again next time.